What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. Chris Pennell here, breaking down the Wurth 400 at Texas Motor Speedway. And I think I can probably speak for most people when I say they're probably not that excited for this weekend's race. Texas is known for some pretty bad racing, and we have a very good chance of 3 pretty bad races in a row. Now, Talladega was, it looked cool. They're 4 wide, and it looks cool on TV, but if you actually know what's going on, there's just really nothing happening. It's just a bit of a parade, and hey, they'll try at the very end. And even then, at the very end, you can't really get out of line and try to make a move. So it was just basically the Hendrick cars pushing to see which 4 could win the race. But on the other hand, boring is typically better for DFS purposes, so who am I to complain? But anyway, if this happens to be your first time here, what's up? My name is Chris Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. Videos on Saturdays, live streams on Sundays, usually around 1:30 p.m. Eastern, so be there and say hi. Always a good time. And if you do end up enjoying today's video, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and let's dive right into it. All right, let's talk some strategy here for Texas. It's not going to be anything crazy this weekend. It's just your typical cookie cutter intermediate track where, depending on how qualifying goes, you typically want 1 to 2, maybe sometimes 3 dominators per lineup. It's your classic around 260, 267 laps, which means the dominator points are around 185, give or take the fast laps due to cautions. So you're kind of just looking at these same guys that we always look at intermediates because, sure, a couple kind of creep up the rankings every other race depending on how practice goes, and sometimes they're just faster than they normally are. But looking at the chart we have here, you will see it's our typical big 3. Almost at every intermediate, we're always going to see Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, and William Byron, on average, just be some of the fastest cars in the field. Then Tyler Reddick always kind of creeps in and out a little bit. He's like knocking on the door of that big 3, but he definitely starts tier 2 at the very least. But I feel like he's almost in between tier 2 and tier 1, if that makes sense. Ross Chastain typically has a lot of speed. Ryan Blaney's usually up there. Now, this season specifically, he's had a lot of speed, just horrible luck. So do not be surprised if he has a lot of speed this weekend, especially in the long run. I know Racing Insights posted on Twitter some of the cars that have been the fastest at the long runs this year or the short runs, and Ryan Blaney is pretty quick on the short run, but the absolute fastest car in long runs, I believe, in intermediates this year. So this is also containing like almost 30 races dating back to 2022. So it is pulling in older data. And then in the next figure, I'll show you guys some more recent success, and you're probably going to see this change maybe a little bit, but mostly the same drivers. So this is looking at a 5-race sample size of the tire that we are using this weekend. So we have 3 races in this tire at Texas. So it's 2022, 2023, and 2024. We're also using the same tire as Las Vegas this season, Darlington, and Homestead. Now, like I said, this is using some older data from those Texas races, but if we specifically think about the 3-race sample size this season of Homestead, Las Vegas, and Darlington, who has been by far the fastest car? That would be Ryan Blaney. So I know she was a little bit lower on this totem pole, but sometimes we have to take in context when we look at numbers, and Blaney has had an absolute rocket ship, so I would not be shocked at all if he is a serious contender this weekend. We also have William Byron at the top of the board. He has been fast. Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin. Now, Kyle Larson, another thing we have to take into context, and it's important to understand why some of these numbers skew a couple of drivers where you're like, man, I feel like they should be in a different spot. Well, let's think about it. Kyle Larson, if we remember the Darlington race, he wrecked on lap 4, but he came back in and ran in the very back the entire time. So that's going to hurt the average running position. So that's what's kind of skewing it down. If that doesn't happen, I'm assuming he's right up there in the top right. So keep that in mind. Kyle Larson, a little bit lower on this list. He shouldn't be. And Ryan Blaney, another guy that I expect to be probably in the upper echelon tier as well. And one more driver I want to point out is that 16 car AJ Allmendinger. At the 3-race sample size this season at Las Vegas, Homestead, and Darlington, he has been a borderline top 10, if not a little bit better car this year. So I would expect him to have some pretty decent speed. And finally, moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown, I do one thing first. That is, of course, it's a free video, guys. You gotta let me do my plug and feed the dog. But if you guys want to join the best NASCAR and MLB DFS community out there, link is down in the description or the pinned comment for the Patreon. And if you are a new user, you can sign up completely free for a week and test drive all the tools, so there's absolutely no reason not to. And I do think you'll like the extra content. And I won't bore you guys to death. You guys can take a screenshot or pause the video if you would like, but you will not find this amount of data or this amount of tools available for the price that I offer out there, because everybody else charges an absolute arm and a leg. But amongst the data, you will get other things like the optimizer that does include DraftKings and FanDuel, and the contest simulator, which is the big thing. You can set up to 10,000 lineups at once, depending on what kind of contest you're in, whether it be cash games or tournaments. And you can sim the contest to see which drivers or lineup stack of the best in tournaments before the race actually starts. So if you want to come in, check it out. I'd love to have you. If not, that's fine. Let's get into it. All right, it's the next day. Practice and qualifying just concluded. As you can see, lots and lots of place differential for Sunday's race. Is that going to be a good thing or is it going to be a bad thing? I'm not sure. Passing is pretty difficult here at Texas, but I feel like by the end of the race, people shuffle around enough to where a good amount of these place differential guys will end up pulling through. Let's look at the practice data here just to give you guys an idea of what we saw on the track Saturday, I guess morning over in Texas, afternoon for most, kind of afternoon. Qualifying was in the afternoon at the very least. But we're going to head over to the lap by lap data because that usually gives us a bit of a better picture. Now I have this sorted by the best average and then I also have it by group. So as you can see, Chad Fincham is going to end Group A here. And I'm not surprised that AJ Allmendinger was at the top of the board. Now, if you're looking at his lap averages, the long run tells a bit of a different story, but this is a bit of a track position race, and he has shown the ability to have a lot of speed at these track types this year and the specific tire combinations, so I'm not going to be overly concerned about that. But Group A honestly wasn't that great. I mean, there's a couple of good drivers for sure. I expect Ryan Blaney to be a contender on Sunday. But other than that, as far as contenders are concerned, I mean, yes, Christopher Bell was always in that category, didn't have the greatest practice in the world, but nobody else here really shouts, oh, you might win this race besides Ryan Blaney. And I guess Christopher Bell, to be honest, Chris Buescher can always kind of sneak in there, and he definitely looked like one of the better cars in this group. But I definitely think Group B looked a bit better. Now, you're going to see Todd Gillen at the top of this group here, but keep in mind, you only ran 17 laps, and all these guys ran 30, 40 laps, so when you run less laps, you have less of a chance to fall off like these other guys did. So your overall average when these guys are getting deep into the run here, Todd Gillen just has nothing to show for it. So tires aren't going to fall off as much, which I'm not expecting a tire racer by any means, but just giving you guys context why he's at the top. But Ty Gibbs led this group. He looked great in practice. A couple of the Hendrick cars here with Larson and Bowman. William Byron is not too far behind. Austin Cindric also had one of the best cars in practice, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure how much I want to put into practice this weekend. Just kind of seemed a little bit shuffled. If we just do an overall ranking of this, you're going to see Dinger, Hocevar, Cindric, Larson, Gibbs, Bowman, which, I mean, it's a respectable group. I don't expect Dinger to have the best car. I don't expect Hocevar to have the best car, even though he qualified on the pole. I mean, Cindric might be okay, but to assume he'll be a top 3 contender and potentially a dominator, I think is probably not going to happen. So seeing Larson as like the first big dog here would make me feel good about him this weekend. He qualified well. If we're looking at the lap averages, Hocevar, Cindric, Ty Gibbs were, I guess, the best of this bunch. Now, that's one thing to be good in practice and qualifying. It's another thing to be as good during the race, during race pace when, it's full go, which it is full go in practice, of course. But when guys are making more risk-averse moves, I just don't really think Cindric and Hocevar are going to be able to hold their position the entire race. Maybe a decent chunk of stage 1, sure, but we don't get paid out for stage 1. But other than that, I mean, there's not really like any surprises. Like, yeah, sure, Christopher Bell, Joey Logano are a little bit lower down the list here, but everybody else, I mean, it's not like a big deal that they're down here. I mean, Ross Chastain always seems to be down here. He'll race his way up during the race. William Byron's a little bit lower, but he qualified in the top 3. I'm assuming he's going to have a good card this weekend. So I'm not going to put too much into it this week. I'm not really a heavy weighting, kind of based off how we've seen them at tracks that are like Texas this season, and just overall intermediate track success is probably the best route to go. We can take a little look at practice, of course, but let's get into it here. We're going to go driver by driver. We'll start with the 5-figure range first. We have 5 drivers, and we have a couple of PD options and a few guys starting closer to the front, so we'll kind of group these by that. So the first 3, we have Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Denny Hamlin. These are early potential dominators. If I had to give a guy a ranking over the other, I would side with the Hendrick cars. And I think I would have a slight preference towards Kyle Larson, but I'm going to be honest, it is a complete coin flip between Larson and Byron in tournaments. If you want to fade some of the PD guys like Blaney and Reddick, you could do that and play both Hendrick cars. And if they both lead a good chunk of this race and finish top 3, which is 100% possible, I'm assuming they're going to project as my 1-2 finishers in my model once I run it afterwards. And of course, I have not yet run projections. They're going to be on the Patreon later this evening, and then we'll go over on the live stream tomorrow afternoon, of course. But the Hendrick cars are probably going to be the ones to beat this weekend. Denny Hamlin's going to be in that GPP pool because I think most people probably have that same thought process where, well, if I'm going to get an early dominator, I'm going to go with one of the Hendrick cars, and then I'm going to try to get Ryan Blaney or Tyler Reddick for the PD. Well, that leaves Denny Hamlin in no man's land, so I think that makes for an interesting pivot because, I mean, as we talked about in the figure earlier, Byron, Hamlin, Larson, these are the three big dogs at the intermediate since 2022. And then the PD guys, Reddick and Blaney, both guys have been extremely fast at these track types this year, but especially Ryan Blaney in this specific tire combination that we've seen at Las Vegas, Homestead, and Darlington. No one has been able to touch Ryan Blaney speed-wise, so he'll be starting deep in the pack. He makes for an excellent cash game option. Like, if I'm playing cash this week, I don't think I would stack the Hendrick drivers of Larson and Byron. I'd probably select one and then pair the other one with Ryan Blaney. Dropping down to the 9K range, Christopher Bell is probably going to be the hardest one to get to. Like I said, I'm not going to put too much into practice this week, but I would say his practice times are probably the worst of the bunch. And he also just doesn't typically crush Texas or intermediate tracks. Like, he's good, don't get me wrong. He doesn't really dominate too much if we're looking at. So the track history stats that we're looking at, I added the 3 races that we've ran this tire at this year, and then the 3 Texas races we've had in next gen. So it's a 6-race sample size if you ran the max amount of laps. And Christopher Bell hasn't exactly been great. 16.5 average finish, just no dominator points besides some fast laps mixed in there. Some top 5s, sure, but I don't really expect Bell to dominate here, so I'll probably just end up being a little lower. He's not a complete fade. Like on FanDuel, if he gets to 6 and you 11.5 and you're starting in 16th, that's all right. But on DraftKings, I think it'll be pretty difficult to get to personally. And then we have a slew of PD guys starting in the 20s. We have Joey Logano, Chase Briscoe, and Chase Elliott. I would assume Chase Elliott will probably be the most popular of this bunch. He did well last week, which just gives people that look at the box scores a little more confidence. He actually won this race last year starting in the 20s, albeit definitely had some luck on his side and some timely cautions. But starting in nearly 30th, he offers the most PDs, the cheapest of the bunch. He's a Hendrick car. He practiced well in the top 10 in the 1, 5, 10. Well, at least in the 5, 10, 15. 23rd in the 1 lap. I don't really care about 1 lap too much. And if you're looking at his numbers in this sample size, 13.3 average finish, has a win, which was a Texas last year, and been in the top 10 in 50% of those races. So, I mean, he is, if you're looking for a cash play in the 9K range, I would personally go with Chase Elliott. The 8K range, a couple more PD plays, then we have some interesting tournament guys. So Kyle Busch in 26, Ross Chastain in 31st. If I have to pick between Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain, I'm going to go with Ross. He just has had a lot of success at these intermediate style tracks, and it seems like he does the same thing every week. He's in this mid-price range. He qualifies poorly. He doesn't practice that great. He starts around 25th to 32nd. And then he just ends up around 10th at the end of the day, and you're pretty happy with the result. He is free on FanDuel. He'll be a staple in cash games over there, and he's also very cheap on DraftKings. So for the tournament drivers, we have Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, and Ty Gibbs, and they almost all feel like the same exact play. Based off of practice, it looks like Ty Gibbs will have the best car of the bunch, but as I always say, practice is not the end-all be-all, and he's definitely been a really tough driver to trust this season. Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, I would say have carried more speed consistently throughout the entire year. So I'm going to be pretty even, I think, on my exposures on all 3. It's not like I'm going to have a big stance either. I mean, they're kind of tough plays to get to, so you have to force them probably in optimizers. Then we go to the 7K range, which is a very similar resemblance of the 8K range, where you have a couple of PD plays that are playable in cash, and then just a ton of tournament plays that are probably not going to project that great. So to get the PD out of the way, Keselowski, Ryan Preece, the 2 RFK cars, they qualified poorly. Chris Buescher did not. Chris Buescher looked like he had a pretty good car in practice. We'll have to see how that translates to the race. But you can play both in cash games. Just depends on what your roster construction lands you on. Keselowski did have a horrible start to the season. Did end up having some speed at Darlington before he had the lug. Pretty sure that was Darlington. The lug came off and just absolutely killed his race. But he had 0 speed all season. Then he finally showed up, which I guess is encouraging at the very least. His practice speeds were completely down in the dumps. I'm assuming he's going to be able to move up. But my only concern is, I mean, track position at Texas, it's really tough to pass there. Joey Logano was saying on the radio where he saw that Ryan Blaney was 0.3 faster than the car in front of him, but he was just stuck behind that car for about 8 laps until he could finally go, and Logano was complaining he couldn't pass either. So that's my only concern about these place differential plays. Like, they might be stuck back there for a while, and we just have to hope that it just doesn't go completely green and they go lap down. But we'll have to see what happens. I mean, if this is a complete track position race where these guys just can't pass at all, I mean, these PD plays could be in some trouble. Obviously, some are going to move up, but not every single one of them can end up panning out. And we could see a situation where no one wants to play Josh Berry starting in 7th, but if he finishes 6th and Keselowski gets stuck in 27th all day and Berry gets some fast laps, I mean, he's going to be a heck of a better play. Same with Chris Buescher, so we have to keep that in mind. So the floor is great on Ryan Preece and Brett Keselowski, but it just depends on how this, track wants to play out, if these guys can pass at all. And then Chris Buescher, Josh Berry, Hocevar, Austin Cindric. I'm personally probably just not playing Hocevar and Cindric. If I was going to play one, it would be Hocevar, just because I guess he has earlier access to Dominator points. But he also has William Byron up beside him. There's Kyle Larson. Hocevar is a wild driver, and it's very hard to trust him throughout the entire race. So even if he does lead a decent chunk of stage one, if he ends up fading back, he has an issue on pit road, then you see him in 24th. It just doesn't matter anymore. So completely high risk play right there. If I was playing any of the tournament plays in the 7K range, it would be Buescher or Josh Berry, because I feel like I can trust them a little bit more, and there's certainly top 5, top 10 upside on both drivers. Going down to the 6K range, we're going to kick it off with Daniel Suarez. Really only 2 PD plays here, Ricky Stenhouse and Suarez. I think Suarez is probably going to be a borderline top 15, top 20 driver for this race. It's not the worst play in the world, just doesn't really stand out too much. Practice speeds indicate potentially a top 20 car. If you're looking at the sample size, though, he's ran pretty well. 10.7 average finish, running position of 16th, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 5 top 15s. I mean, I think Suarez is fine. $6,900. He doesn't have as much PD as a guy like Ryan Preece or Brad Keselowski, but there might be a little bit better finishing position potential mixed in. Noah Gragson had some of the better practice times overall, especially in the lower price drivers, starting in 18th, but he's just merely a tournament play. Not a lot of place differential here. Might be a borderline 15th, 20th place car. So not a ton of upside, and there's a decent amount of downside in there. I would have a lot more interest in Eric Jones if he was starting further back. AJ Allmendinger, I feel like it's the same thing every single time with these intermediates. He's going to start 10th, and he'll probably run around 10th the entire day. But I do like him. He's in the tournament pool. I just, from what we've seen so far this year, I mean, the speed is there. I just don't think it's going to completely disappear. Austin Dillon probably runs around 15th, 25th all day. Michael McDowell is unplayable starting in 5th. He is a pure Saturday champion. He just doesn't really show too much on Sundays. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is probably the best punt play of the week if we're talking just low 6K drivers and beyond. Starting in 34th, practice times in the top 20s. If you're looking at the sample size here, usually around 20th, 25th place for Stenhouse. That's perfectly fine in 34th at $6,200. Zane Smith in 13. It's one of those things where, I mean, again, if it's just really tough to pass and he just sticks it in 15th all day, that's fine. But these drivers just don't project well. You have to go out of your way to play them. Todd Gillen in 32nd. Like I said, he had the best overall average for Group B, but he didn't run as many laps. And if you're looking at this data set here, just not expecting too much. I mean, Zane Smith definitely, I think, should have a better car. Haley is basically the same thing as Zane Smith, but if you're looking at this data set, finish-wise, 14.7, which is pretty good, even though he's starting in 15th. Running position of 22nd, and some decent finishes here. 4 top 15s, 2 top 10s, 1 top 5. I wouldn't sleep on Justin Haley here. It feels like their team can be a little hit or miss, but I mean, just based off of those numbers, I mean, I know he's starting in 15th, but I mean, John Hunter Nemechek's probably going to finish deep in the 20s. Cole Custer, Riley Herbst are going to move back. Jesse Love's going to suck. Ty Dillon might be on a similar playing field as Justin Haley. We know those quality cars kind of show up a little bit, but practice didn't show up for him, but SVG is horrible. Should be out of Cup soon, hopefully. Cody Ware, Chad Fincham should not be on the track. So honestly, I mean, Justin Haley of this 5K group, I mean, he might have the most upside, to be honest. Practice 13th, 10th, 23rd, 30th, which isn't too impressive, but like I said, not going to lean on practice too much. And those numbers he's ran this season and in Texas in general are not bad for Justin Haley, so he might be one to look for. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week, so hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel for brand new. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. If you want to check out all the extra content, you're able to find it. Link will be found down below. Hopefully I'll see you on the live stream tomorrow. Wish you all the best, and I'll see y'all next time.